It is easy to trace water through London. It's everywhere. We lie so close to the riverbed. The Thames, the sick river that cuts through the city. You'd have to travel so far to its source to find anything remotely drinkable, even today. Though imagine the filth of Victorian London, raw sewage, dead bodies and industrial byproducts were eaten up by the River Thames, a watery paradox that doubled up as a place for general bathing and sometimes as a source of drinking water. You only need to read a Charles Dickens novel to feel it on your skin. It is not surprising to learn how often cholera struck the city during the Victorian period. Cholera is a waterborne disease that hit with extreme suddenness and led to a tragic evacuation of the whole body. The population's fear, in part, led to its eventual remedy. Cholera was one of the most urgent medical riddles of its time. New, deeper and cleaner water sources were needed and much greater public access. The pumps throughout the city were at best unreliable and worst spreading cholera. 1848 to 1849 saw the worst British outbreak in more than a decade. Which brings us to the first fountain and the origins of an initiative rooted in public health. It was built in 1859 in the grounds of St. Sepulchre's Church. I know it is the first because the fountain tells you. In shallow carved letters it reads, "The first metropolitan public drinking fountain," and above, "The gift of Sam Gurney, one of the founding members of the Metropolitan Drinking Fountain and Cattle Trough Association." The association's aim was to provide clean, safe drinking water to all Londoners, but also to curb the reliance on gin. At its peak, the fountain had thousands of visitors per day. This first fountain is small, though quite ornate, with its aquatic shell motif and highly polished granite columns. In 1867, it was dismantled to allow construction for the nearby Holborn Viaduct, and it now lies embedded in the church railings, another dry relic to Victorian public health. Its short life may be lamentable, but its relocation led to the fountain retaining its original common cups and chain. It is important to note that most remaining Victorian public drinking fountains are left with just the suggestion of these past adornments, usually in the form of a little metal hoop or a hole where one would have been. Later, in the interest of public hygiene, most were cut off and newer designs featured an upwards jet. Built in 1860, just 1 year after the first, this fountain has an even more religious overtone. The eroded letters around the basin read, "The fear of the Lord is a fountain of life." It sits here outside St. Dunstan's in the west. It's not surprising that church railings and yards often house these drinking fountains. The temperance movement was a huge part of the Drinking Fountain and Cattle Trough Association's work. The temperance movement were concerned with calming the mood of Londoners from a religious perspective. We only need to look at William Hogarth's famous print, Gin Lane, 1751, to appreciate the devastation that excessive gin consumption could cause. When you look at the print, the putrid liquid pulses through every individual, causing chaos in its wake, from the central mother who drops her baby into the gin cellar, to the skeletal figure in front of her, decaying before he's even entered the grave. This fountain, though highly eroded, is quite ornate, with a carved neoclassical dolphin for its waterspout and ornamental swags under the basin. Also note the little metal hoops where the cups would have been chained to. It turned out that although quelling cholera, these common cups were also spreading typhoid. As we pass Blackfriars Bridge, we are encountered with a larger, freestanding fountain. Made completely of granite, it stands almost as it would have. It is a good example of a style used many times by the association. A simple neoclassical urn acts as the point as where the water would flow. Barely any of these fountains run now. Gradually cut off over the years, they really went into decline after World War II, as most homes had access to running water. What is sweet about this fountain is the little trough at the base for a dog to drink from. The association's commitment to animal welfare gained them the support of the RSPCA, and with that, more funding. You still see many of these dog troughs, and of course, cattle troughs, dotted around London. The latter now tend to be used as planters, adding touches of green to London's grey landscape. Now, we take a turn and head back into the City of London. behind the Royal Exchange is a much grander fountain. It was presented through the association by the wealthy, worshipful company of drapers. The figure of Charity catches my eye this time, elegantly sitting atop this 1878 decommissioned drinking fountain, sculpted by French artist Jules Delou. The original was carved in marble, but it deteriorated quickly and a bronze replica was made. She cradles two babies, one suckling at her breast and the other gazing up at her face. Women are often seen adorning these more ornate fountains. The allegorical figure of charity and temperance are common themes, as well as biblical women, such as Rebecca by the well and the Samaritan women. It is very clear that the male body is rarely found adorning these public drinking fountains. Purity of spirit and innocence are historically positive qualities attributed to worthy females. I want to conclude, though, with summer and the biggest and most beautiful of London's Victorian fountains, the Angela Burdick Coutts Memorial Drinking Fountain, located in Victoria Park. In stark contrast to the examples before, from afar the fountain is secular and the figures are male. Presented through the association in 1862 by the rich heiress Angela Burdick Coutts, she was a woman before her time, working hard for London's poor population. This fountain provided clean, safe drinking water for thousands of people living in the East End.